Ken Campbell,
The Seekers Podcast.
Not a Faladay, more not a Faladay, more not a Faladay. Walk about, snell, spit, day long, lies one, half one, belong, everyone, something, bugger up, dead, finish, yeah.
Welcome to Ken Campbell, The Seekers Podcast, hosted by me, Daisy Campbell, Ken's daughter, and David Bramwell.
Ken Campbell was one of a kind. An unconventional performer, wordsmith, theatre director, comedian, trickster, and creative powerhouse. For this unique series, we'll be plundering Ken's archive to bring you the best recordings of his one-man shows, as well as other selected treats. So, Daisy, the RDC hoax.
Yes, this is Ken telling the story of, what I think is the greatest theatrical hoax ever pulled off, actually. And
which led to a Scotland Yard investigation.
Yes, it did, and to him appearing on Newsnight and the whole bit. And so this is actually a story that comes out of a larger one-man show, Theatre Stories, but unfortunately the sound quality really isn't that great. And most of the stories that he tells in Theatre Stories we've actually already covered in other episodes, so we thought we'd just keep the telling of the RDC hoax for this one. So here we go.
What I thought I'd do for you, well really, is tell you how my life went astray at a certain specific point. Some years ago, 1980 it was, the case of Roger Rees's fruit bowl and the contents of it. Actually, need a bit of background before that. I think I'll kind of dedicate the talk to the late Lindsay Anderson, filmmaker and theatre director, who died sadly the other year. I've never been against lovies as such. In fact, I quite like to have been one, but sadly they didn't want me. They didn't like, it was nice, but they sort of seemed to think that I should be somewhere else. And anyway, one of the places I found that if you're a non-lovey, that you could be occasionally, not too often, mind, was with Lindsay Anderson, because he wasn't a lovey, he was a loathy. In fact, the attraction of the geezer was, I don't think he liked anything, or anybody. And if he smiled, his lips would go down further. That's Lindsay amused. But a little known fact about the guy is that he did used to laugh. Occasionally, it was about every 3 years or something. And he used to fight it. It would take him over from strange parts of the body, like I've seen him go from the knee. He's holding it in. Anyway, Lindsay took an interest, faintly, when I started going to science fiction conferences, which was about 1971 or 2 or something like that. And the reason I went was because I belonged to a little outfit of folk who were into doing something that you never do every week. Like every week you had to do something that you never did, you know. But during that first year of the outfit, I spotted that there were science fiction conferences, or certainly there was one going on at Easter in the Station Hotel in Newcastle on Tyne. And I thought, wow, I'd go to it, because I don't ever go to science fiction conferences. But the reason I wouldn't ever have gone normally was I didn't really read science fiction. I read at school, but I don't take any great interest in it. Anyway, the thing was, it was marvellous. The thing about the science fiction conferences, I knew most of the playwrights at that time. They wrote Trevor Griffiths, David Hare, Howard Brenton, these sort of kind of guys. They were okay company, I must say, but they weren't anything like science fiction authors. I'll tell you, I mean, because when playwrights get a bit pissed, they actually they don't become better company, to be honest with you. You know, getting narrow, arguing, like funny, you just want to shove them up and see them in a taxi home. Science fiction authors, they're kind of different breed. I mean, it's like the pister they get, the more remarkable they get, and they go on and they don't argue. Whatever you say, you know, how extraordinary, they won't argue with it, you know, they go, yeah, and yeah, they say, yeah, and yeah, you're right, yeah, and you're good. And then someone's like, yeah, while you're at it, you're good. And I mean, we never used to go to regular science fiction conferences. We just build these incredible cathedrals of ideas there. And on that first one, I got talking to Brian Aldis, and Brian said, he was a wonderful guy, Aldis is, and he told me that according to his researches, that the bifurcation of the British literature had taken place in 1939, or possibly 38, with the children. I didn't know what he was talking about. Anyway, I was kind of interested in what that might be, but I thought it would become clear, the later part of the conversation, but it didn't. I said, Brian, I said, what is that about the bifurcation of the British literature? What do you mean by that? And he said, bifurcation of the British literature sounds very easy to understand. He said, if you take H.G. Wells, he said, for example. He said, H.G. Wells was, I know he's the only one, but he's the best known. He said, H.G. Wells, one week he'd write the history of Mr. Polly, i.e. social realism. The next week he'd write the shape of things to come. Week after that he'd write in the War of the Worlds. Then he'd write a history of the world. And the thing was that whatever Wells wrote, critics, public alike, they'd say, oh, you keep at it, Wells, it's terrific stuff, you fuck who you like, it's marvellous. But then after 1938, what we did was we split the literature. Yeah, we bifurcated it. So this meant, after 1938, if you were caught imagining in the stuff you wrote, or it turned out, you knew how machinery worked, or how mind worked, even worse, what would happen is you'd be sold in the wrong part of a bookshop, and possibly not in a bookshop anyway, but often unsuitably lyric covers on railway stations. And I was kind of I was thinking, TV hadn't been too bad, but with Quatermass and that, they had their science fiction, movies kind of came, but anyway, so that's how come I decided to found a science fiction theatre, which I eventually did in Liverpool. It's called the Science Fiction Theatre of Liverpool. And the thing really great on it that we started with, was Illuminatus. We dramatised these 3 books. I wrote Show all Anton Wilson. And it was a good old do. And it lasted all day. What I did was I based the dramatic structure of the thing on a science fiction conference. You get mind-boggling information and stuff, and antics going on. It was very successful, and actually, it came out of the warehouse in Liverpool, off to Amsterdam, and then wound up as being the production which opened the Cottesloe Theatre of the National Theatre. Marvellous. That then, I'll be back to Roger Rees and his fruit bowl. You'll see why I'm bothering to do it. Anyway, so that was 1976. I was at the Cottesloe in 1997, and then time's going by. We did some other science fiction productions, but nothing sort of had the clout of this all-day Illuminatus thing, And then as luck would have it, I encountered this extraordinary fellow, Neil Oram. Neil Oram, he was kind of diseased in a way. He was diseased by memory. He never forgot anything. Once you realise, you're going to remember a lot. Nothing. He'd lost it. I don't know. He'd never had the editing thing where you only remember your important, stuff you need to. He remembered a lot. So he realised he'd got to make his life interesting, and he realised rather cleverly that meant ruling out fame. Because fame is kind of boring, So what he'd done, he devoted his life to meeting remote and remarkable and obscure and alarming and extraordinary people. Yeah, and so one day I sat him down because he could remember everything. In no time at all, we'd written the longest play in the world. Anyway, it's pretty brief. We put it on. A whole bunch, about 50 or 60 enthusiasts, all gathered together. The thing was actually successful. It kind of ran on and off for about a year. We didn't do it every night. We did it at weekends. Really. It's in the Guinness Book of Records. Yeah, longest play. The longest recorded theatrical production, it's not worth buying the Guinness Book of Records, incidentally, after 1983. The longest recorded theatrical production of Ben the Warp by Neil Oram, directed by Ken Campbell, a 10-part play cycle, played at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Mall, London, 18th to 20th of January 1979. Russell Denton was on stage for all but 5 minutes of the 18 hours, 5 minutes. 3 intermissions, total 3 hours, 10 minutes. Detail on that. Russell Denton was fantastic. I mean, he knows about 5.5 times Hamlet in length, and he learned it in 3 weeks. I mean, he really rarely knew it, you know. Extraordinary performance. And then it would have carried on. I mean, there was other places would have had the production, but suddenly Russell said he didn't want to do it anymore. And then when he didn't want to do that anymore, he realised there wasn't anything else to be done, you know. And so he retired from acting and became some kind of gardener. Sorry, Russell Denton, but it was 1979. And so, it's just important people wear this, you see, because I kind of regarded myself as some kind of king, an emperor of the ridiculously long productions. And then in 1980, the Royal Shakespeare Company, at the time headed by Trevor Nunn and Terry Hands, suddenly they were putting on this mighty long Nicholas Nickleby. Nicholas Nickleby was over 8 hours long. You saw it generally 4 hours. You know, let's see, part one night, that was 4 hours, and then 4 and a bit for part 2. Anyway, well, I thought you know, I better see what they're up to. It was kind of treading on my ground. And anyway, so I went along to, and actually, that's sort of part 1 anyway. I booked for part 1, I can see part 2 a couple of weeks later. And it was in fact incredibly good. In those days, we had in Britain and America, there was a really flourishing, very inventive fringe and experimental theatre scene. What Nunn and his partner in the production have done in Nicholas Nickleby is they'd actually taken elements, you know, bits like they pinched bits from the more exciting bits of the frame, right? And it was in their production. I mean, they didn't kind of miss a trick that was worthwhile. And one of the novelties of it was that the cast, when they weren't actually involved in the thing, would be sort of like trotting around, passing through, walking up the roads even, you know, like it's fair to see they'd want to sit and watch it with you for a bit. Anyway, I was in the second row from the front, and what was terrific was that the actress playing Kate Nickleby was a one-time girlfriend of mine called Susan Littler, and she spotted me when they were, you know, going back. She came in, and she said, "Shall we go for dinner afterwards?" Said Kate Nickleby to me. I said, "Yeah, terrific." Anyway, so we did. And anyway, over dinner, she was telling me about Roger Rees's fruit bowl. Roger Rees was playing Nicholas Nickleby. And at the end of the show, there would always be a queue of people queuing to tell Roger Rees how good he'd been. And so what he'd done is he'd instituted a fruit bowl in his dressing room, so people, while they were, you know, waiting to tell him how good he was, could eat some fruit. And in Soho, Susan had found this very realistic-looking banana. if you picked it up, it turned into this into a prick. Anyway, so it was taken back and his fruit bowl. Excellent. And anyway, when I got back home though, I was thinking that actually was very good. I mean, I had to say it was good. I mean, it was very good. Part 1 of Nicholas Nickleby, and I suppose, well, you know, when I'm on these rare events when you see something actually just wondering, you know, when I said they're actually putting on something really, really good. Maybe that is when you should write a letter, saying, you know, just perhaps when you do it, you know, I was thinking, yeah. Anyway, I thought, well, actually what I write it to, and everything, I got the programme there, and I was trying out, you know, a letter back, but every time I wrote a letter, it felt a real panic. I can't say that. Anyway, then I went to bed, and I think, I was dreaming there, thinking in my bed, I couldn't get Roger Reese's fruit bowl out of my mind. And then it came to me, actually, I know what I'd like to write. And the next morning, I rang up Openhead Press. Openhead Press was an anarchic press that was run by Heathcote Williams and Richard Adams. And I said, how long would it take you to slightly modify a Royal Shakespeare Company letterhead? So it pretty much looked like it, but actually was a bit different in one or two details. And they said, well, how many sheets do you want? I said, 200 or something. And he said, well, he said it would take a couple of hours, I suppose. He said, if you can get us an original. I said, anyway, so I ran round. Anyway, a friend of a friend had a letter from the Royal Shakespeare Company just recently. He was an actor, a young actor. And it was actually from Trevor Nunn. And it signed, Love Trev, it said. Anyway, he gave me this letter. And I took it off to Openhead Press, and they modified it so that, in fact, this is a photocopy of it, so that they're actually short, like that. That's how it was. So that it reads RDC, Royal Dickens Theatre. Yeah. And then Toby Johnson, now an award-winning playwright, but in those days he was just something, one of the And the great thing about Terry was that he'd seen Nicholas Nickleby and he'd just read Little Dorrit. So I said to him, I said, how would you cast Nicholas Nickleby, the cast of Nicholas Nickleby, how would you cast them into Little Dorrit, Terry? And so he did it. There's a photocopy about how Terry did it, working out how the cast would play. And then I sent off, I wrote out, anyway, a letter to everyone in the cast, all the cast. This is the one that would belong to Suzanne Bertiche. Dear Suzanne, as you probably know, there's been a major policy change. The first production of the new RDC is hoped to be Little Dorrit, adapted by Snow Wilson and directed by John Kerr and myself. It's early days yet, Suzanne, if you'd like to look at the part of Fanny Dorrit, we can have a chat about it later in the year. Anyway, I covered the cast, and then I thought, well, I better send one to all the in-house directors, you know what I mean, and Terry Hannah, that's how they all got them, and then there was still, actually I got loads of paper over, and so I alerted the Arts Council, Minister for the Arts, anyway, I mean, it was really terrific. And then I really got it together. Then I thought, if this was really real, why don't we get it so it's really real? So it's really trapped, And I got really inspired and creative. I mean, I really put together. I had a team from all different parts of the theatrical profession. Got letters encouraging them to. Look into. Anyway, the marvelous thing is that the pile of letters, and then you post them off, and there's that moment before when the world is just like it is. You send them off, and then you kind of get hoaxer's blues for a bit. Because there's nothing you can do about anything about that's that. And I'd never had anything. I didn't know Trevor Nunn or anything, And anyway, then it was time for me to go along and see part 2 of Nicholas Nickleby. And the other was in the fact, and I guess part 2 was probably as good as part 1, but I can't even watch it. You don't really work out, wow. And I was trying to think, well, you know, what they've been cast as in Conte. and how it did. Anyway, there was Susan again. She said, dinner afterwards, said Kate Nicholby. Anyway, we went for dinner afterwards, and you know, I thought, well, I can't bring up the subject. And then she said, she said, Mrs. Denny, she said, we got these letters, you know, everyone got them. She said, I reckon it's a hoax. She said, but nobody really knows, she said, because, you know, she told me a bit about the letters she got. She said, well, we don't know because Trevor's away on holiday. Anyway, then he got back from holiday. And then it was in the press. I mean, this is a tribulation times. Here's the one. Martin Huckabee, Times Theatre Reporter, this is from the Times, 31/7/1980. Shakespeare's name stands absurdly too high and will go down, Lord Byron said in 1814. This month it looked as if the bard had finally been toppled from his pinnacle by the unlikely contender of a novelist, Charles Dickens. The Royal Shakespeare Company's success, with its Dickens adaptation, Nicholas Nickleby, has brought the company more than just an unfulfilled clamour for tickets. It has also given rise to a hoax that is causing much embarrassment in the theatre world. Trevor Nunn, the RSC's joint artistic director, said yesterday that someone whose identity they could not discover had produced thousands of sheets of hidden notepaper, immaculately printed in exactly the company's style, but instead of RSC at the top, the notepaper said RDC, Royal Dickens Theatre. As a quote now, on this notepaper, the hoaxer has written to hundreds of people working in the theatre, offering them the chance to do productions with this new company, which has abandoned Shakespeare. Each letter has been sent as if from Mr. Nunn, signed Love Trev. It is now deeply embarrassing. A lot of people have written to me refusing, or even more embarrassing, accepting the Mr. Nunn said. He said the people were chosen very carefully. Thus, John Barton, well known for his adaptations of Shakespeare and Greek tragedies, was asked to finish The Mystery of Edwin Drood. Michael Bogdanov, known as Bodge, was asked to direct sketches by Boz. Hang on, there's a bit more to it. Dear Michael, Dear Michael, blah, 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 blah. It's early days yet, Michael, but would you look at sketches by Boz? And let me have your reaction. It's great if you could adapt yourself and include circus stunts. Other letters went to such disparate people as Sir Roy Shaw, Secretary-General of the Arts Council, and Peter Cheeseman, who runs the Victoria Theatre at Stoke-on-Trent. And the letter to him went something like, for too long now, Peter, have we been apart? He said, would you consider hard times? Send at earliest your plans for adaptation of the Aldwych Auditorium. Love Trev. And he did. One letter sent to Mr. Norman St. John Steve as Minister of the Arts read, Dear Minister, as you've probably heard, there's been a major policy change in our organisation. Nicholas Nickleby has been such a source of real joy to cast, staff and audience that we have decided to turn to Dickens as our main source of inspiration. As someone said at a recent meeting, Why tie so many fine Dickensian directors and actors to this endless wheel of Shakespeare revivals? I am convinced that Dickens will prove as big a draw as Shakespeare if we can keep up this terrific standard. So that'll be it for the Bard as soon as our present commitments decently permit. The first production of the new RDC is hoped to be Little Dorrit, adapted by Snoo Wilson and directed by John Caird and myself. Any thoughts you have on this will as always be treasured. Love, Trey. Yes, perhaps we could get together for lunch sometime soon to discuss this. The Pickwick Club would seem appropriate. Oh yeah, actually there's another one. Yeah, voice show the Michael. Yeah, Terry, this was a difficult letter to write because this was Terry Hands. He's kind of only just slightly junior partner and things. Dear Terry, I'm sorry to spring this on you, but I've instituted a major policy change. The whole experience of Nicholas Nickleby was such a source of joy and inspiration. In fact, it was for me a spiritual cleansing. I'm clear it has to be done. Now, many fine Dickensian actors must no longer be tied to this endless wheel of Shakespeare revivals. Someone said this at some meeting or other. Who was it? I divined that our break with the Bard should be sudden and clear, which is why I didn't bother discussing it. The host has now gone a stage further, with staff at the Aldwych Theatre in London arriving one morning to find that every Nicholas Nickleby poster had been covered by another in exactly the RSC house style, advertising the future production of Little Dorrit. That was a beautiful piece of work by Openhead Press as well, was the poster. They took the old drawing of Little Dorrit and they just split it around a bit, and there she was, and all the cast names down there in alphabetical order. Incidentally, what happened was I was in Liverpool. I was working in Liverpool, and I got a phone call from Newsnight. To be in 1981, I got this phone call from Newsnight, and they said, "We accuse you of being behind the Royal Dickens hoax." I said, "No, not me." I said, "I always thought it was James Fenton." I thought about it, and anyway, I rang back the researchers of the Newsnight. I said, "Yeah, no, actually, it was me." And they said, "Oh, terrific." They said, "We made a little film. We filmed Trev. We're going to do it. It's the tag end, a little uplift at the end of Newsnight." And they said, "Would I go to the studio here in Manchester, actually? Would I head over from Liverpool and be in the Manchester Newsnight studio? And, send a car and everything." Anyway, I was drinking quite hugely in for a morning before setting off, and then when you get there, it's very lavish, the entertainment, if you're going to be a Newsnight novelty. It's a whole trolley load of possibilities. And it was kind of like this, you see, because I was in the Newsnight, waiting to be on, and then on the monitor, we were suddenly into it, and they were playing this little film they'd made of Trev, describing how horrific it had been, worry and embarrassment, of it. And at the end of it, they said, if you ever found out who it was, what would you do? And he said, and I'd never seen him before. I had never seen him before. And he was like the Sheriff of Nottingham. And he kind of looked at the camera and he said, "I would throw down the gauntlet," he said. That's kind of the end of the thing. And they said, "Well, we actually have got the perpetrator of this hoax in the studio in Manchester." And then I could see myself on the monitor, and they lit me in terrorist lighting. And sorry, but anyway, they you know, they want to know, how come I'd done it and everything. And I thought, God, I can't land poor Susan in it, start talking about Roger Reese's pricking his fruit. So I kind of burbled, about how, sometimes I get whispered things by a kind of little grinning person. Anyway, they switched me off like mercifully quite quick. But then the guy, the Newsnight man, he said, I don't know about that. He said, I refer to this little grinning person. He said, I don't know about that. He said, but it's a damn fine idea. and listen, just it wasn't long before he died, Lindsay Anderson. He called me over to his place in the Swiss cottage he used to live in. And I don't know why he'd invited me over. It seemed like he just wanted to tell me of a few additions to his shit list. I told him, I said, I think Richard Ayres, Sir Richard Ayres, I said, I think Richard Ayres all right, I really do. And anyway, Richard Ayres, he did get to do a production and he'd done it. I said, how was Richard Ayres? He said he was fine, he was very good. I said, well, and he said, when I came. Yeah. So I said, there you are, see, so Richard was all right. He said, yes, he was. He said, he's a little shit. I said to Lindsay Anderson, I said, this was trying to get a laugh out of him. I said, Lindsay, did you know that when the late great American science fiction author Theodore Sturgeon was interviewed by his squire said, yes, Mr. Sturgeon, but 90% of science fiction is crap. To which Sturgeon had replied, well, 90% of everything is crap. And Anderson went, he said, when was that interview? I said, I don't know, 1964, I think. He said, it's got a lot worse since then. And he went over to his drawer he pulled out, and he pulled out this. Dear Lindsay, as you've probably heard, in our organisation, obviously has been such a source of real joy to cast staff. Sorry to turn you, etc. Thinking of you, Lindsay, brings the old curiosity shop to mind. What a coup if you bring Sir Ralph and Sir John together again in a script by David's story for this venture. I feel your cool, intelligent approach is going to be badly needed here in these new times. I look forward to hearing your reactions. Love, Trent.
Ken Campbell, The Seekers podcast, was produced and presented by Daisy Campbell and David Bramwell, with kind permission from the Ken Campbell estate. Music was by Horton Jupiter. It was funded by Arts Council England. The disembodied voice of Ken was Jeremy Stockwell.